The leader of the opposition gets 6 questions at Prime Minister's Questions every week. 6 chances to hold the government to account on behalf of the people who elected her, on the very things that they're worried about, on the things that affect their lives. Last week, Kemi Badenoch used all of her 6 questions on a fuel duty rise that the Prime Minister told her repeatedly was frozen. Not rising, frozen. 6 times. She kept going. This week, with the meningitis outbreak killing young people in Kent, with families watching oil prices spike because of an active conflict in the Middle East, with an economy under genuine pressure, she used all 6 questions to ask whether Starmer personally phoned Peter Mandelson before appointing him. 12 questions across 2 weeks, not one of them about something you were actually lying awake worrying about. Okay, so we covered last week in detail, so I won't dwell on it. But the short version is this. The spring statement was delivered on the 3rd of March. The Iran conflict started on February the 28th. The OBR acknowledged the document itself that it couldn't model the war that had begun 3 days before the statement was being delivered. Fuel duty was frozen, and Kemi asked 6 times anyway.
Mr. Speaker, fuel duty is frozen. It's going to remain frozen until September.
6 times, same answer, moving on. This week, Starmer opened pmqs with something important.
Condolences are with the families and friends of the 2 young people who've died following the outbreak of meningitis B in Kent. Others are seriously ill, and this will be a deeply difficult time for their loved ones. Mr. Speaker, health experts are working to identify close contacts and distribute antibiotics, and will begin a targeted vaccination programme in the coming days. And can I take this opportunity to ask anyone who attended Club Chemistry on March 5th, 6th or 7th to come forward, please, to receive antibiotics.
2 young people have died, others seriously ill. A targeted vaccination programme being mobilised. The Prime Minister is using his opening statement to directly address the public. If you were at Club Chemistry on those dates, come forward and get antibiotics. That's not a Westminster story. That's a public health emergency that parents across the country are scared about right now. Kemi Badenoch's first question was about Peter Mandelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister tried to avoid scrutiny on the Mandelson files by releasing the documents immediately after Prime Minister's questions last week. So let me ask him now. Did the Prime Minister personally speak to Peter Mandelson about his relationship with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein before appointing him as our ambassador to Washington?
Now, I want to be straight with you here because I think you deserve an honest argument rather than a cheap one. The Mandelson story is real. Appointing an ambassador who had an ongoing relationship with a convicted paedophile and the questions around what Starmer knew and when, that, it's legitimate scrutiny. I get that. I'm not dismissing it. But here's where it gets difficult for Kemi. By the time that she stood up to ask her questions, the accountability loop on this story was already functionally closed. Starmer had admitted it was his mistake on the record.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me start where I must. This was my mistake in making the appointment, and I've apologised to the victims of Epstein. I do so again. The government is complying with the humble address in full, but we are also continuing to support the police in their investigation. The matter of process was looked at by the independent adviser on ministerial standards. It's clear the appointment process wasn't strong enough, and that's why I've already strengthened it. But it was my mistake, Mr. Speaker, and I've apologised for it.
He said that the process wasn't strong enough and that he'd already changed it. The independent adviser for ministerial standards confirmed that due process was followed. The government was complying with the humble address in full. So, what is the question actually for? Kemi's specific line of attack, did you personally speak to Mandelson before you appointed him? It sounds forensic, but think about what either answer actually gives you. If you didn't speak to him, that suggests negligence on the appointment, but he's already admitted negligence. He's already apologised. If he did speak to him, it suggests he knew more than he's letting on. But she's not building to that argument. She's just asking the same question 5 times, hoping that something falls out. She asked it 3 times, then 4, then 5.
So I will ask him again. Did he speak to Peter Mandelson about this before the appointment, yes or no?
Badenoch.
I didn't hear an answer, Mr. Speaker, and he's right, it is about his judgment. He has repeatedly told us that Peter Mandelson lied to him, but he won't tell us if he actually picked up the phone and spoke to Mandelson before appointing him. This doesn't make any sense. The Prime Minister told us on the record, and I quote, "I believed the lies he told me." If the Prime Minister didn't speak to him, how can he say he lied to him? Why did he fail to do his duty?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the process is clear. It's been looked at by the independent adviser.
Each time she got a variation of the same answer. Each time she tried again, and each time the meningitis outbreak was still happening. The oil price shock was still happening. The war was still happening, and her 6 questions were running out. Now, after PMQs, there was a couple of points of order where the Tories started getting a little upset about the questionings, or should I say the answers. And also, it happened again on LBC. Conservative MP Joy Morrissey went on to complain that Starmer refuses to answer questions, that he dodges and deflects, and the Speaker lets him get away with it in a way that he never would have with a Conservative leader.
Kemi Badenoch questions rather than answer the question that she's put to him. But is that any different from any other Prime Minister, John?
Oh, it's totally different. If we had refused to answer the questions every single time, and he sort of gaslights Kemi in a way, he just, every single time she asks the question, he doesn't answer, and then suddenly he'll answer some bloke's question, and he's just, it really looks bad. It looks like he has a woman problem, and if he doesn't want to answer the questions, we might as well not do Prime Minister's questions, because it is the point of that, to answer the questions. If any of our Conservative leaders had done that, the Speaker would have called us out. They would have.
There's just one small problem with that argument, and it actually comes out of Joy Morris's own mouth.
Out, they would have been forced to.
Boris did it all the time.
Yeah, but then he was called out by the Speaker all the time.
She said it herself. Boris did it all the time and got called out all the time, which I don't think he actually did. The thing is that she's complaining about doesn't happen. It did happen. She just told us in the same breath. So here's what 12 questions across 2 weeks actually looks like when you lay them out. Week 1, a war is escalating, there's an oil price shock, people are worried about petrol costs, and Kemi asks 6 questions about a tax rise that doesn't exist. Week 2, a meningitis outbreak is killing young people, the same war's still going on, an economic shock is unfolding, and Kemi asks 6 questions about whether the Prime Minister rang his ambassador. On a story, by the way, where he's already admitted fault, already apologised, already changed the process, and where the independent ethics advisor has already said that due process was followed. This is not opposition. This is a woman who's had a catastrophic week on Iran, spent 9 days saying join the war and then told the BBC that she never said that, and who is now hiding in Westminster process stories because they feel safer than the world outside. The problem is the world outside doesn't stop moving just because she needs somewhere to hide. There is a version of Kemi Badenoch that could actually be really dangerous to this government. She's intelligent, she can be sharp, and on the right day with the right materials she can actually land a blow. But right now she's using her platform to ask questions that, even if they worked, wouldn't change a single thing about how you're living your life. While people are worried about their kids going on a bus to a nightclub in Kent, while farmers are watching fuel costs eat into their margins, and while families are looking at their energy bills and wondering how much worse it's going to get before it gets better, those people need a voice in that chamber this week. But what did they get? They got 6 questions about a phone call.